I've always felt that by design, survival games have a lot of potential, but it's one of the game categories that's consistent in producing titles that don't always meet expectations. My introduction to survival games was Reign of Kings, which was a lot of fun before the developers disappeared never to be seen again. And I've scattered hundreds of hours across games like The Forest, Ark Survival Evolved and 7 Days to Die, all of which have their merits. But the genre was redefined when I played Valheim for the first time. Valheim blends together some of the greatest games to date to form a best-in-class survival experience. The gaming world is like a body of water with a very strong current. As games I've been excited for have released, my attention has been drawn away. But even all these years later, each time I pick Valheim back up, I'm instantly reminded how much I love this game, and with Ashlands now on the horizon, it's a great excuse to dive back in. Valheim is kind of reaching the point now where when someone tells me they haven't played it, that's up there with the other friendship ending crimes like having not watched any of the Lord of the Rings films. Speaking of Lord of the Rings, I recently played Return to Moria with some friends, and it made me realise that Valheim has deservedly become the benchmark for the survival genre. And this is probably as good a time as any to mention the jaw-dropping fact that initially this game was developed by a team of 5 people. The majority of survival games plunge you into harsh and intense environments that always have you micromanaging some kind of system whilst playing. Valheim takes some of the staple survival game features and does them a lot differently, and in my opinion, improves upon them. The food and hunger system is a great example. You're never going to die of hunger in Valheim, but food is important as it plays a big part in your physical capability for combat. And this lends itself beautifully to the sandbox feeling. It doesn't rush you at any stage. Meaningful progression is always there to pursue should you wish to, but equally you can play for hours and do nothing but chop trees or go hunting, and you've had yourself an amazing session. It's strikingly obvious that the developers have tried to create a game that's respectful of the player's time. If you want to play alone, you can do that. Or if you want to jump in and play with friends, you can seamlessly hop into their worlds with the same Viking, the same inventory and progression that you have achieved elsewhere. The procedurally generated world provides an aesthetic showpiece with a soothing ambience to match, along with a god-tier building system, boss fights and challenging combat. And that variety means that you get to choose the experience you have every time you play. Out of all the survival games I've played, the building in Valheim is easily my favourite. I love all the different building blocks you can build from, be it building a simple door frame or reinforcing a wall, which is actually worth doing because your base does get attacked. You can be really creative, and I learned quite quickly that if you think you can build something in Valheim, you probably can. In some cases, building in survival games can just revolve around needing to sleep or having storage available for items or resources. In Valheim, it ticks those boxes, but there's a little bit more meaning to it than that. I ran into a really cool problem early in the game. Homes need to be heated and food needs to be cooked. The obvious solution is of course fire. One thing I didn't consider though is smoke. Smoke acts as you would expect it to, and it fills enclosed spaces with health costs if there's no ventilation to the outside. So I built a chimney, which was problem solved. But that's not a factor I was used to taking into consideration, but I really liked that I needed to come up with a solution for this because straight away it transformed my idea of building and challenged me to get creative, both functionally to vent the smoke and aesthetically to keep things looking good. Games tend to fall into one of two categories for me these days. They're either interesting or they're fun, and it's very rare that they're both, but Valheim is one of the games that is. Shoot it in the face! Some of the greatest aspects of this game are the basic fundamentals, because somehow this is where the biggest studios get things wrong. Like physics of a falling tree, I don't think woodcutting would be as fun in any other game, particularly the survival games, without those added physics. It's a straight up innovation. And take crafting as an example. You go out and hunt a deer, pick up its deer hide, and just like that you can craft capes and armour from it. Once you get leather from boars, you learn to craft bows and arrows. It's a simple concept, but it provides an incentive to go and explore and gather resources. And that incentive is noticeably lacking from some other survival games that keep the focus narrowly on just surviving. Eventually, my search for resources led me to exploring the world and its other regions like the Black Forest, which outside of the meadows was the first biome I discovered in search of copper and tin. Upon first entering the Black Forest, my guard was down. At this point, I was used to being harassed by the occasional greyling or being set about by a boar here and there, but I didn't really know what else was out there. The different variants of grey dwarves are one thing, but trolls? They're a whole nother can of worms. these lunatics are out here swinging tree trunks around like they're practicing for a caber toss competition. As you slowly move through the other biomes, you learn you have even scarier beasts to contend with, like the wolf packs and drakes in the mountains, or the leeches and draugr that have made the treacherous swamps their home. It definitely has to be said, death in Valheim can be brutal. You drop everything upon death, and a little headstone is created along with a map marker. But like I said earlier about the game respecting your time, the good news is the graves don't depreciate or decay at all, which means that if you've taken a 2-hour boat trip and got one shot by a tree that you cut yourself, yes, that happened to me, I don't want to talk about it, then it's just a case of making that journey back to go up and grab your gear, or if you've got a portal, then I don't want to talk to you because I didn't and I had to do it all over again. But your gear will be there nonetheless, and it's collectible, so once you find yourself nearby again, you can pick it straight back up. There's a few different ways you can get around the Valheim. You can go on foot, by boat, and you can ride too. But there's only one creature in the game that you can ride currently, and that's this thing called a lox, which you acquire through passive taming. I would love to see more mounts get added into Valheim, which in theory should be entirely possible, considering, as I've just said, taming's already a thing. Just imagine being able to tame a wolf or a huge stag like Eikthyr and run around the map like Thranduil from The Hobbit. This map is huge, so that just makes absolute sense to me. Teleportation is a feature of the game, but you need to have travelled to any desired location and set up a portal first before that becomes an option. So eventually, you can get yourself set up with a network to travel between, but that takes time, and I think that's a good thing personally. I do want to talk about boat travel though, because it is a real experience and it's definitely one of the coolest parts of the game. And it should be, after all, you're a Viking. Some of the views you get to take in while sailing are incredible. There's something exciting about a trip on a boat, especially if you don't know where land is and you just go out and explore and your only company can be the occasional sea serpent. The art style and visuals are both gorgeous and unique. I have a deep appreciation for what Iron Gate have achieved here. They've struck a perfect compromise between some of the most important aspects of games like the visual quality, the gameplay itself and performance, whilst also staying true to the idea of gaming in the first place, which is providing a platform for fun and a portal to a place where the real world can be forgotten about. Valheim offers so much variety. You can go toe to toe with a boss alone or take friends with you. You can stay home and build something, plant something or tame something, go hunting at your own pace, explore the world. It offers the chaos you might be craving on a Friday night, or the calm you might need after a busy and demanding day. Despite updates to the game such as Mistlands, Valheim still costs around £15 on Steam. And despite the success that Iron Gate have realised with this title, they haven't introduced any microtransactions, and in this day and age, it's not hard to imagine that the temptation might have crept into their mind at some point. There's so much out there to experience in a world that's different for everyone, that you can enjoy at your own pace. It really blows my mind that this level of quality was achieved by a studio of 5 people. And in some ways, that's why Valheim can ruin other survival games for you. I said it's a benchmark for the genre, and I truly believe it's earned that position. It's rare these days that games make you feel as though you can get lost in them. The last few that did it for me are games like Breath of the Wild, Skyrim and Red Dead Redemption 2. And even Red Dead Online has shot itself in the foot recently. But we'll cover that in another video. My point is, a lot of the AAA developers are struggling to release games that you can get lost in anymore. Generally speaking, you might forget things that are said in games. You might forget parts of a quest, but you'll rarely forget how a game made you feel. And that is why I love Valheim. It's a love letter to its players, and it delivers amazing adventures every single time. Thank you so much for watching my video. Be sure to drop a like rating if you enjoyed it. It really helps me out a lot. And please consider subscribing if you want to see some more. See you in the next one.